welcome you for this great lecture video. In this video, we are going to see some of the problems related to machine design subjects. In all our engineering subjects, can be grouped as design-based subjects and manufacturing-based subjects and energy-based subjects. So in design, we have engineering mechanics, set of materials, design of transmission systems, CAD, and in energy group, we know the thermodynamics and heat transfer, thermal engineering, turbo missions, then what are the subjects, mass transfer. So these are all the subjects coming under energy group. Similarly, in manufacturing, we have subjects like the manufacturing technology, non-conventional machining process, material science, metrology and measurements, uh, some theory related to CNC. So these are all the subjects. Suppose you want to score more marks in gate examination, then you have to be expert in all the subjects. Okay, then only you can score maximum marks. Okay. So getting eligibility is easy. Okay. But scoring higher marks is too difficult. So it is you have to be expert or you have to have a deep knowledge. Okay, then only you can score a maximum. So in this video, I'm going to discuss about design for static and dynamic loading and failure theories, and critic strength of a component, and the principles of design, machine elements for bolted jack, riveted jack, welded jack. Some of the transmission components like shaft, gears, bearings, brakes, clutches, springs. So before going into the problems, numerical problems, we should have we should know some theoretical concepts. Then only we can we can understand the problem. Okay, so what are the problem given? We should understand what all the data is given. So what is the what will be the related formulas? So what we are actually going to find. Okay, so if you are strong in theory, okay, then we can solve what are the problem. Okay, so now I'm going to cover some of the failure theories. Okay, failure theories. It means some theories are developed to predict the stress induced in the component. Some theories. Okay. Some scientists or some designers actually developed some theories. Okay. We know our strength of material subject, we have this sustained curve. Okay. So in this sustained curve, we can calculate the mechanical properties like yield stress and elastic limit, plastic limit, proof stress, and ultimate stress or fracture stress. So these are all the things we can find from this graph. Okay. So it is actually the result of the uniaxial tensile system. Okay. If a component, you can see this is a component. So this component is subjected to uniaxial loading. Then what are all the stress induced and what is the deformation and what is the maximum stress induced in this component? So we can get these details from this graph. If the component is subjected to multi-axial loading or biaxial loading, okay, So in this case, the component is subjected to only uniaxial loading. If it is subjected to biaxial loading, it means loading in both x and y direction. And if it is multi-axial loading, means more than two direction. Okay, it may be x, y, z, or other than biaxial loading, all the loading can be referred as multi-axial loading. Okay, so we cannot actually take this result of uniaxial tensile testing research. Okay, we cannot take the same values for designing the components, but the component is subjected to multi-axial loading. Okay, so we have to again go to the experimental value for comparing the stress induced. Okay, it is not easy. Okay, so to predict the stress value experimentally, if the component is subjected to multi-axial loading, then we have to move some other analytical formula. Okay, so the formula is actually known as theories of failure. Okay, so using these theories of failure, I can predict the stress induced value. Okay, so what is the maximum stress induced? What is the minimum stress induced? Okay. Some theories are developed. Okay, the theories are known as theories of failure. So before going into detail, what are the types of failure normally occur in the material? Means if the material is brittle, then the fracture may be occur. Okay. Then if the material is ductile, then yielding may be occur. Okay. So in ductile material, failure is known as yielding. Okay. Failure is due to yielding. If it is brittle material, the failure is due to fracture. Okay, for example, if I am taking steel or aluminum or copper, known as ductile materials, this material failed due to yielding of the material. So brittle material, the cast iron or some other ceramic materials can be called as brittle materials because there is no yielding. Okay, so it is actually if the component is subjected to loading, then it is actually without yielding, the component is directly fractured. So we have these major two types of failures. Okay. Then one more term before we should understand is factor of safety. Okay. Which is very important term in design. Okay. Because depending on this factor of safety, the life of the component, or the safety of the component will be calculated. Okay. Actually, the factor of safety is the ratio between the allowable stress, the failure stress to the allowable stress, or the maximum stress to the allowable stress. Okay. The factor of safety value is always greater than 1. Okay. The factor of safety is actually different from um, uh, different for different problems. Okay, the factor of safety is normally uh, is not a constant value. It is actually differs. If the problem is like a boiler problem or shell problem, the factor of safety may be very high. Okay, if the component like the aero components, the aerospace components. Okay, so the aerospace components should be light in weight. Okay, so the thickness of the component should be uh, very little. So in this case, the weight of the component may be reduced. So the factor of safety should be also maintained at least nearer to 1. Okay. So depending on the problem, the factor of safety will be varied. Okay. So this is the definition is it is actually is the ratio of failure stress to allowable stress. Failure stress to allowable stress. Factor of safety. So now coming to the theories of failure. Okay. So before going to theories of failure, what are the types of loading normally uh, occur in a component? What are the types of loading means? I can term it as static loading and dynamic loading. Okay, static loading and dynamic loading. Okay. Static loading means the load. Okay, the load is the magnitude of the load and the direction of the load is constant. Okay, it is not actually varies with the time. That is known as a static load. Okay. It means, for example, if I'm applying load on the component, so initial means at t equal to 0, applying 10 kilonewton load. After 1 hour also, I am applying the same load. Okay, then the load referred as static load. Okay. If the load magnitude and direction is varies with respect to time, then the type of loading is dynamic loading. Okay. Mostly all the mechanical components are loaded in the dynamic condition. Okay. Where normally the load is normally not constant value. Okay. But for simplicity, we can assume the load is static load. Okay. But all the loads are dynamic. Okay. For example, fatigue load. Fatigue loading is a dynamic loading, and any thermal load. Okay, so thermal load, the load, the temperature. Okay, the temperature is varies with respect to time, like the transient problems. These type of problems are dynamic problems. Simply, you can say that if the load and magnitude varies with the time, then the load is known as dynamic load. So if the magnitude and direction of the load does not change with respect to time, then it is known as static load. Okay, so these two things should be understand before going into detail. Okay. Then first theory, the maximum principal stress theory states that if one of the principal stress induced in the component when we are applying loading on the component, and we are applying loading on the component, there may be some stress induced in the component. The stress induced. Okay. This stress induced, if it is maximum, then we can say it is sigma 1. If it is minimum, we can say it is sigma 2. Okay. So the sigma 1 or sigma 2 exceeds the yield stress value. Okay. If the component having some yield stress value, this yield stress actually obtained from the uniaxial tensile test. Okay. So from this tensile test, I have the value of yield stress, okay, for the particular component. If this yield stress, it should be greater than the induced stress. Okay, if I'm applying loading, actually the yield stress is a material property. Okay, I'm applying loading on this component. The loading is multi-axial, okay, or biaxial. Okay, then the stress induced, if it is assumed as sigma 1 or sigma 2, then sigma 1 and sigma 2 should be less than or equal to the ultimate stress or yield stress. If the component is ductile material, the limit stress, actually the limit stress is yield stress. If the component is brittle material, the limit stress is ultimate stress. Okay. The induced stress is sigma 1 and sigma 2 should be less than or equal to the ultimate stress or yield stress. So in this graph, you can see this graph, the x-axis represents sigma 1 by sigma ultimate. Okay. In this case, the x-axis. Okay. Here the x-axis represents sigma 1 by sigma ultimate. Similarly, the y-axis represents sigma 2 by sigma ultimate. Okay. This is the ratio of stress values. Okay, the sigma 1 is indicates the induced maximum principal stress. Okay, so ultimate stress is a material property. Okay. Similarly, in this case, sigma 2 is the minimum induced principal stress. Okay. The ratio is the value of this ratio may be 1. Okay. If this value, actually the blue color indicates the safer area. If the induced stress value are within this 1 or within this minus 1, then the components may be in a safe condition. Okay. So in the same way, the sigma 2 value lies in this range of 1 to minus 1. then the component is safe, okay, under this loading condition. Okay, so from this figure we can say that if the component subjected to multi-axial loading, the stress induced or the ratio of the stress induced with this ultimate stress are within the blue area. Okay, so within this blue region, then the component is safe. Okay, otherwise, if it is lies outside the this blue region, then the components may be fail. Okay, so this is the theory actually safe. But the maximum principal stress theory is not suitable for all the materials. Okay, so we know brittle material, ductile material. There are some other materials known as viscoelastic materials. So we cannot actually say that this theory is suitable for all the materials. Okay. From the studies, okay, from the studies, this material is suitable for only brittle materials. Okay. Brittle material means there is no actual yield stress. The stress is actually only the ultimate stress. So the component is made up of brittle materials, then we can follow the maximum principal stress theory. Otherwise, this theory is known as Rankine theory. Okay. Here the Rankine is the scientist. He developed so many theories. So one of the theory is maximum principal stress theory. Okay. You might have you might hear about the Rankine cycle and Rankine theory for columns. Yes, so a lot of equations are normally developed by Rankine. Okay, so this is all about the maximum principal stress theory. Similarly, the maximum principal strain theory. Okay, otherwise we can say it is the Saint-Venant's theory. Okay, Saint-Venant's theory. So according to this theory, if the one of the principal strain induced in the material, okay, if one of the principal strain of the material exceeds the strain is obtained from the tensile test. Okay, so it is obtained from the tensile test. So the induced principal strain should be less than the strain value. Okay, induced strain. Why there is a strain happening means if I am applying load on the components, then there may be a strain. Okay, this induced strain should be less than the strain of the component. Okay, from the experimental, I have some strain value. So from the theory, I have some strain value. Okay, so this induced principal strain should be less than the strain obtained from the experimental test value. Okay, so this is actually known as maximum principal strain theory. The next one is maximum shear stress theory. Maximum shear stress theory. Otherwise, we can say it is Tresca theory or Tresca criteria. Here, the maximum shear stress due to the applied load, there may be shear stress existed. Okay. Or there may be shear stress induced in the material. This induced shear stress should not exceed the shear stress of the component. Okay. So induced stress is actually calculated one, calculated value, but the shear stress is actually calculated from the experimental value. Okay, from the experimental test. So the induced shear stress value should be less than the shear stress calculated from the experimental. Okay. Otherwise, in equation form, okay, in equation form, we can write the tau max equal to sigma x minus sigma y by 2. Okay. Here, the sigma x and sigma y are the applied load or applied stress. Okay. So the induced stress is actually tau max. It should be less than the sigma yield by 2. Okay. So otherwise we can write using this equation. So modulus of minus sigma 1 minus sigma 2, okay, should be less than the yield stress. That is the theory, is known as maximum shear stress. Okay. So from the graph, you can see the blue lines. The blue line are the indicates if the induced stress value sigma 1, then the ratio of sigma 1 to sigma yield, okay, within the range of +1 to -1, then the components may be in safer condition. Okay. Then maximum distortion energy theory, one more theory is known as maximum distortion. This theory is actually most suitable theory for all the materials. Okay. But it is actually good for ductile material. Anyway, we can apply this theory for brittle material also. Okay. Okay. So one of the accurate theory. So this is actually developed by von Mises. Okay, von Mises. So we know in our FEA subject. Okay, our FEA. Normally, we are calculating the von Mises stress for the components. Okay. So based on this von Mises theory, we can predict the value of uh, sigma 1 and sigma 2. So actually this theory states that the total distortion energy absorbed per unit volume. The total distortion energy absorbed per unit volume exceeds the distortion energy per unit volume obtained from the uniaxial tensile test, then the failure will happen. Okay. I am going to compare the total distortion energy absorbed per unit volume of the component with the total distortion energy of the component obtained from the experimental values. Okay. So the equation, the mathematical equation for calculating this illustration is von Mises criterion is sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square minus sigma 1 sigma 2 should be less than the sigma 8 square. Okay. So now you can see the blue region is actually is like a ellipse. Okay. Ellipse. Okay. In previous case there is a rectangle. There one more. There is like a trapezoid. Okay. So in this case it is like a ellipse. Okay. Uh, so one more thing we should know that the one Mises theory best suitable for ductile material. Okay. So now I'm going to solve some problem like a large uniform plate containing uh, a rivet hole is subjected to uniform uniaxial tension of 95 megapascal. The maximum stress induced in the plate is okay. So suppose if you are seeing this problem, actually we thought it is a simple problem, okay. But it's not a simple problem. Uh, so from the figure we can say directly so the stress value. Okay, here the stress value. The stress equal load by area. Then we can calculate 95 by this 10 minus 5, 5. So 95 by 5 is the answer. Okay, this is not a right way. First, we should know that here at 95 megapascal given as a load. Okay, we know the 95 megapascal is actually stress value. Okay, for solving this type of problem, first you have to convert this stress into load. Okay. So the 95 megapascal is the stress value. Just I am multiplying with the uh, 10 into T. Okay, actually stress into area. Okay. So stress into area is actually a force. So I'm going to calculate the force from the stress value given. Okay. So the force equal to stress into area. Here the stress is 95 megapascal. Then area is equal to 10 into T, the cross-sectional area. So the cross-sectional area is 10 into T. Actually, like width into thickness. Okay, width into thickness. That is cross-section area. Yeah. Okay. So suppose if the plate is having thickness of T, then the cross-section area equal to 10 into T. Okay. So the force is calculated using the stress given. So then the stress equal to force by area formula. The force is 90.1050 and the minimum area. Okay, the maximum stress actually occur at the area of the circle. Okay, the maximum stress occurs at the it may be at the top of the circle or at the bottom of the circle. Okay, so I have to calculate the minimum cross-sectional area of the plate. The minimum cross-sectional area occur at the middle. Okay, the overall thickness value, the breadth is 10. If I'm just to reduce the diameter, 5 mm diameter from this width, I can find the area 10 minus 5. Okay, so 10 minus 5 is the area. So actually the 10 centimeter is given. Here it is 5 mm is given. First you convert this 5 mm into centimeter, it makes 0.5. So the total 10 centimeter is the overall length. If I am just to subtract the value of this 0.5 mm, then I can get 9.5 mm as the overall width of the component at the circle area. Okay. So first to calculate 10 minus 0.5, 9.5 is the width and thickness is 9.5 um, multiplied with the thickness use the area. Okay. So 9.5 into thickness T. Okay. So that is the area. So 10 minus 0.5 into T. Of course, we can cancel the T value both in numerator and denominator. So 95 into 10 by 9.5. So it is 100 megapascal. Okay. So first calculate the force value. The force is calculated from the stress given. Okay. Force calculated from the stress. Then substitute the force into the stress equal to load by area formula. Here the area you have to take the minimum cross section area. Minimum cross section area because you have to find the maximum stress. You can see the question find the maximum stress in the plate. So if I want to find the maximum stress, then I have to take the minimum cross section area, okay, of this component. This occurs at the middle of the plate. So at the middle of the plate, there is a 5 mm diameter hole. If I am just subtract the value, okay, subtract the value of 5 mm from 10, okay, then I can get a 9.5 centimeter as the width of the component. Okay. So if 9.5 is the width, then the thickness, okay, multiplying thickness with 9.5, I can get the area. Okay. This is the final answer is 100 megapascal. So one more thing, the torque to weight ratio of the circular shaft. Okay, second problem is the torque to weight ratio for a circular shaft transmitting power is directly proportional to, okay, the torque to weight ratio. We know the formula for torque, torque of a shaft. You know that T equal to pi by 16 plus B cube. The formula for torque and for calculating torque and the weight ratio. Okay, so weight ratio is means weight ratio W equal to pi by 4 d square into L into density. Okay, so normally weight equal to volume into density. Okay, weight equal to volume into density. So you can calculate the volume of this shaft from this formula pi by 4 d square L. Density is considered as a rho. Then torque to weight ratio is the question. So torque divided by weight. So we can get the pi value and cancel each other. Then finally we can get only d value. Okay, d. Okay. So it is actually indicates that the torque to weight ratio directly proportional to d. Okay, directly proportional to d. So the answer is B. Okay. Then the outside diameter of the hollow shaft, that is twice its inside diameter of the ratio of its torque carrying capacity to that of a solid shaft to the same material and the same outside diameter. Here I am going to find the um, solid shaft is quite important. The ratio of the torque carrying capacity. Okay, here in this case we have two types of shaft. One is solid shaft, another one is hollow shaft. Okay, here the ratio between the torque transmitting capacity of a solid shaft and the hollow shaft is the question. Okay, so we know the torque carrying capacity of solid shaft. The formula is equal to pi by 16 F plus dq, and the torque carrying capacity of a hollow shaft is actually pi by 32 d power 4, capital D power 4 minus small d power 4 by capital D. Okay, so this is the formula. If it's just substituting this formula, we can get the value of 15 by 16. Okay, so the correct option is A. Okay, so the next problem is okay, the design of shaft. Okay, if the design of shaft made of ductile materials subjected to twisting moment and bending moment, recommended theories of failure. Okay. We have discussed about some of the theories of failure like maximum principal stress theory, maximum principal strain theory, distortion energy theory, okay, and maximum shear stress theory. A lot of theories are there. So if I'm going to design a shaft, then what is the theory I should follow? Okay. So the theory is maximum shear stress theory. Okay. Here the answer for this question is maximum shear stress theory. Because the shaft is made up of ductile material. Okay. For all the ductile material, it is better to use maximum shear stress theory. Okay. Suppose in this option, if I'm including the one measure stress theory, one measure stress. Okay, one measure stress theory, then we can choose that option. One measure. But in this case, the options are maximum principal stress, maximum principal strain, maximum shear stress, maximum strain energy theory. So after these four, the maximum shear stress theory is most suitable for designing a shaft. Okay. So, so option C is correct. Okay. Similarly, SN curve for a steel becomes asymptotic nearly at. It means you know the SN curve. It is stress number of cycles curve. Okay. This curve normally we are plotting using critic loading design. Okay. Design against critic load. So in this case, we have to consider the stress number of cycles curve. Actually, the stress number of cycles curve varies from 10 power 1 cycle, 10 power 2 cycle, 10 power 3 cycle in the x-axis. Okay. So number of cycles. Actually, in SN curve, S represents the stress value and N represents the number of cycles. Okay. So if it is asymptotic means in the sense the behavior of the component actually varies depending upon the cycles. It is if it is nearly at 10 power 6 cycles, the behavior is asymptotic. It means the behavior is different from the initial behaviors. At 10 power 2, it behaves like in different way. And 10 power 3 and 10 power 4 cycles, 10 power 5 cycles. Okay, so we can plot the behavior using SN diagram. So after 10 power 6 cycles, the behavior will be slightly different. Okay. So that is the answer for 10 power 6. Correct option is C. Okay, for example. Then the small element at the critical section of the component is biaxial state of stress with the two principal stresses being 360 megapascal and 140 megapascal. The maximum working stress according to the distortion energy theories. Okay. So we know the distortion energy theory. Okay. Actually, the formula is sigma 1 plus sigma 2 minus sigma 1 sorry, sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square minus sigma 1 equal to working stress whole square. Okay, so this is the equation for maximum distortion energy theory. So the working stress, okay, there are two stresses given, two working stress. It means the two principal stresses given. One is 360 megapascal, and another one is 140 megapascal. Okay, so if I'm considering sigma 1 equal to 360 megapascal and the sigma 2 equal to 140 megapascal, then substitute the formula like working stress equal to square root of sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square minus sigma 1 minus sigma 1 sigma 2. Okay. So substituting this value, our final value is 314.32 megapascal. Okay. So the option is C. So these are all the problems actually related to the um, theories of failure and design against static loading and dynamic loading. Okay. So few more problems are there. We will see this problem in next class or next video. Okay. Okay.